hot. I'm leaving the fan on, so sorry, audio guy. Me.
Can pull me from the dark.
Hi friends, today I'm here to talk to you about Southern Charm on Bravo. So, I just finished all 8 seasons of Southern Charm, and I will say that it was just chef's kiss. I don't know why it took me so long to watch this series. Like it was so good. I couldn't stop watching it. Like I had to limit myself to 3 episodes per day because there's some days where I was going like 5-6 episodes like back to back. It was so good. I'm surprised it's not talked about as much. Like I feel like obviously Vanderpump right now, everyone's talking about it. All the Housewives franchises are big, but like I don't hear people talking about Southern Charm as much, and it's so good. So the first thing that I want to talk about is Catherine Dennis Calhoun and Thomas Ravenel. That couple, if they're not the biggest train wreck on Bravo, I don't know who is. Like that is just, it was a recipe for disaster from the very beginning. What I think is wild is that Catherine was actually hooking up with Whitney, which, like pin on that, Whitney, first of all, is the executive producer of the show. Like I didn't know that till the very end, till like the last season. For whatever reason, as I like watch it, I like Google like certain things, and then yeah, I see that he is the executive producer. He like came up with the concept of the show, so that's like, he's brilliant. And I like how he started out as like a main cast member in the first couple seasons, and then he slowly like stepped back, and he obviously still appears and whatnot, but yeah, like I was shocked that he's a producer. But back to him and Catherine, they were hooking up in like the first couple of episodes. There's a scene with Patricia, his mom. They're in his room with her butler, and there's like a pile of clothes on the floor, and there's like a lot of ladies' items that are there, and you know, she's asking like, oh, who's this, or who does this belong to? And he mentions Catherine, which like she wasn't a main character for that first season. She didn't do confessionals, like any of that stuff, so I didn't connect it when later on Thomas started talking about Catherine. It was just weird because she was so young at that point. She was only 21 years old. Like she was still a child. Like she just became like a full adult at 21. I don't know, it's like so weird that she was hanging out with this crowd and then hooking up with these like older men. So yeah, her and Whitney were getting not serious, but she was spending multiple nights at his house. Patricia was seeing her in the mornings, and then somehow, I guess at that party of Jenna, I think was her name. She was only on the first season. She had that mohawk. She was very strange. She had a party, and that's where you see Thomas and Catherine talking, and I think after that, they slept together. And then within a few days, she sleeps with Shep. Like, I mean, let's call a spade. Like, the girl's a hoe. Like, she was getting around town, and the fact that any of these guys thought that they were going to be able to have, like, a serious relationship with her is kind of comical. But yeah, so she hooks up with Shep, which starts, like, this huge fight between him and Craig. Craig's so cute. Like, he's my favorite. He has his moments. They all have their moments, because I really like Shep too. But Craig he's a hottie, and in that first season, he's so young. Like, seeing him now compared to that first season, I mean, all of them really, they were just so much younger. So yeah, he's like pissed off, like saying that Shep, it doesn't keep to guy code because he was into Catherine, and then he slept with her. So what I think is funny about this series is that the guys are the ones that have the most drama, which is so refreshing. Like, I'm used to obviously Housewives and Vanderpump, but it's the guys that, like, they're the ones that bring the drama, the heat. It's so good. So that was the first big fight. I remember thinking like, oh my god. And it's weird, you know, guys versus girls. Like, when guys fight, they have it all out. Like, these guys yell at each other, they're at each other's throats, and then the next day usually it's a lot more calm, and they kind of just like oh, you know, I'm mad at you about this, blah, blah. Like, they talk it out, and then it's over. Whereas, like, girls, like, it's a constant, like, no, like, you're a fucking bitch, and it's, like, a whole season thing. So these guys, it's so different, and I enjoy it so much. So then they get the pregnancy scare, essentially, where Catherine is late, like 2 weeks. And so Thomas is like, well, you know, if it's like my child, like I will be taking care of you. You won't have to worry about money, like nothing. But they don't know. They want to make sure that it's his and not Shep's, because she literally slept with both of them, like, around the same time. So that's, like, how sad is that you needed a paternity test for your child, for the father to know that it's definitely his. Like, that's when you know, like, you're sleeping around a lot, girl. Like, she was just on a roll. And at the end of the season, they're, like, 9 months later, and it's Thomas and Catherine and a baby. And, like, the last scene right before that is Thomas telling Catherine, like, it's not gonna work out, like, you know, we're just not right for each other. And I was so happy that they were just going to call it off, because I was like, no, you guys are not, you're not right for each other. Like, he's a disgraced politician, like, he got indicted for coke, like a coke ring or I don't know what, and, you know, he's trying to, like, run for office again. He has Whitney, like, record these controversial commercials for him, which is a big fight that him and Catherine have. But it's just like, you guys are not right for each other, for sure. So obvious. And I was glad he was putting his foot down and, like, setting boundaries. And then she's pregnant and she has his baby. So then we go into season 2, where Catherine's, like, trying to be wifey material. Like, she had the baby and he's running for office, so she wants to be the congressman's wife. And so she's trying to give off that vibe, and Thomas is just like, he's not having it. Catherine is very volatile.
Seriously, Tom, stop! I'm not letting you leave me! Oh my God, Thomas! Stop!
Listen to you, screaming and yelling like a 2-year-old.
Stop!
Get away from me! We're done. We're done.
No, stop!
She's dramatic. She's, like, at a 10 constantly, and she's just a lot to handle. Then you add in Thomas, who can be, like, a lot too. And again, it's just a recipe for disaster. So they're on again, off again, and then their, like, relationship drama kind of spills into everyone else. It definitely was the focus for those first few seasons, and I think a lot of the co-stars got annoyed with that. And in the midst of that, they go on this cast trip, and Catherine, she kind of goes crazy. At one point, there's this fight between her and Whitney, and they replayed a specific part of that fight constantly, where she's like, you know, I was 9 months pregnant and you went to the strip club, and then she swings at him, like, tries to fight him, and she says, like, you need to die, or something like that. Like, it was, like, a huge fight. So from then on, like, Whitney just keeps his distance with her, and then so does Cameron, because Catherine just starts to become really toxic. People do not want to be around her. She just loses it. She really just snaps. And again, like, just super volatile, and people get sick of it. To the point that, you know, Whitney and Cameron and a lot of people don't want to have anything to do with her. Patricia, Whitney's mom, who's like, I want to be Patricia when I grow up. Like, that lady's life is just, wow. Like, tons of money. She has a butler that she just rings her little bell, and he comes and he brings her drink. Living in, like, a 20,000 square foot home that used to be the library. Like, it's insane, this lady's life. And she's just my hero. Her skin, it looks so good. I mean, just, she's awesome. I love Patricia. But yeah, she wants nothing to do with Catherine, because, like, as far as she knows, Catherine's just, like, low, like, trashy. And so for a while there, a lot of people didn't want to really have anything to do with Catherine. Then they have Cameron, who was kind of the narrator. Like, she would tell the story, like, from her point of view. She was so funny. I thought it was really cool how she, like, had her man off the show. Like, he never was on. And, like, every time they'd have, like, a ball or some kind of event to go to, she'd bring random guys instead of her husband. But that's good. That's probably best to like keep your like actual relationship off cameras. I think that probably helped her like in the future. I enjoyed her. She was really funny. I liked how she was very much like the cheerleader for the guys, like trying to like help Shep like try to settle down, and same thing with Craig. So then we get to Craig and Shep. So Craig, that first season, he's in law school. He's very determined to finish, graduate, like get ready for the bar. Like he's very much like, I have to work, like all my friends have money and they can kind of just do whatever they want, and I have to, like, I take my job seriously and I have to really balance these two lives, and he does like a really good job of it. And then like in season 2, I think the show gets to him. I think he probably starts to get recognized and stuff like that. And so, and they always talk about how Charleston is such like a party town, like it's a drinking town, it's very much active in that sense. So I think in season 2 he just went a little cuckoo and he just started partying a lot and staying out late and not really prioritizing his job, which he ends up getting fired. Which was like, oh my God, Craig, like, and that starts showing like how it's like you want to shake him, you know, it's like, what are you doing? Like, you need to focus. But he's so cute, and he starts to, like, basically telling a lot of lies. Like, it ends up being that he didn't even graduate from law school, even though he said he told everyone he did. He took Whitney and Shep back home to Delaware, and Whitney was giving him a hard time in front of his parents, and he's like, did you even graduate? And then Craig's like, yeah, like I have my diploma, like something like that. Lo and behold, like he didn't really graduate, like he was just lying. And then at one point he has Shep like help him put his bar paperwork together, and like they mail it off. Shep's like, oh, what was that? Like, where did that paperwork go to? Because I was there helping him. It's funny because he's so cute, but it's just like, why do you lie so much? Like, and he even says it in like later seasons when he has a life coach. He brings on a life coach, and he's just like, I'm a really good liar. And she's like, that's not a good thing to admit. So Craig, like as the seasons progress, I feel like kind of gets like a little chip on his shoulder again about how his friends are just very like come from a lot of money, and he's different and he has to work differently. So he ends up, after getting fired, starts working for JD, who's Thomas's best friend essentially, and he's a businessman in Charleston. He owns like a hotel and a restaurant and a salon. Like he has all these things, and then he starts trying to open like a bourbon company, and Craig wants to head up that whole project. And JD's like, yeah, no, like I'm just like, you're essentially my bitch. Like you're my assistant and you're helping me with a lot of things, but you're not going to be the lead of this. And that kind of like starts to show Craig like kind of throw like tantrums and stuff like that when he thinks that he's like ready for something or something should be for him, and then other people don't agree, and he just gets like very frustrated. That also ties in with Naomi, that's his girlfriend that they brought in like season 3 or 4, and they started off like super cute, like all couples do. Like you are in your honeymoon phase and it's just adorable. So they start off like super cute. He gets her like this promise ring, and you can tell that they really loved each other. And then they became the new Thomas and Catherine. Like the fights that they would have, and Naomi was so hard on him. She didn't like that he essentially like didn't have a job after a while. Like he was just like doing a lot of random things at home. Like he was gardening a lot, and then he got a sewing machine, which ends up being like probably one of the best things he could have done. But initially she was just like frustrated that she was going to school at the time, and she was just like really hustling, and she would come home and be like, what did you do all day? If it was like a regular boyfriend and girlfriend and that was happening, it's like, yeah, like I'd be frustrated too. But obviously they can't break the fourth wall, and the thing is that like he has a job. His job is being on TV and he's getting paid. So I wouldn't have been so hard on him, because it's like, well, he does have a job. It's just like on camera it looks like he doesn't, but he really does. Like obviously, yeah, I was brought on because of his position on the show. So after a while it's just like, yeah, you guys need to break up too, because this is not going well, and you guys like literally hate each other. Like she ended up starting to be really mean to him, and then he started being really mean to her too, and then it was just like all bad. So that was funny to see, like, the progression of that relationship and how it was just like crash and burn for sure. Then you have Sheppy. Like, he's just a big kid. He is total Peter Pan syndrome, obviously comes from money, and then in the later seasons he opens up a couple of dive bars which end up doing really well. So he's set up, and the thing is that he just can't really settle down. Like, he dates a lot, he doesn't know how to commit, and he can get a little like rough around the edges. Like, he's very blunt, and he starts to get a little mean. People have to start checking him. Him and Craig butt heads for a bit there, and it's just, Shep is super entertaining. In season 3, it's revealed that Catherine's pregnant again with Thomas's kid, and so they're getting ready to have a boy. So they figure, like, we just need a co-parent. And then Catherine failed a drug test, and so she ends up losing custody of her kids for a time being, where she ends up going to rehab. She comes back and she's clean, and she's trying to like earn her visitation rights again with her kids. She tries to like reach out to people, and a lot of people, again, they're just like, no. In particular, Cameron, she calls her, she's like, wants to meet up with her for lunch, and Cameron's like, I'm not interested. Like, I wish you the best. I'm glad that you're working on yourself, but it's just not for me right now. Which I wouldn't either. Catherine also has like a thing with Landon, because for whatever reason, Catherine, you can tell she's a very insecure woman. And that was, I think, the thing that kept her and Thomas constantly at odds, because she's so insecure, she's constantly thinking that he's stepping out on her, which he could be, like, very much so. And with Landon, that's what she thought. Like, she was thinking that they like hooked up behind her back or something like that. So her and Landon did not get along. In that first season that Landon came in, she was like really nice to Catherine, and she was trying to be her friend, and then at the end Catherine like flips her off. She's like, fuck off, like talking about how like this is our party, like her and Thomas's party, when it really wasn't. It was just Thomas's party. She's like, and if you don't like that, you can leave. Landon's like, okay, calm down. So yeah, after that they just could not get along, and for a while there they were the ones that were like constantly fighting. Then it ended up being where Catherine was kind of on the odds, and the only ones that really talked to her or like friends with her were like Shep and Craig, and they kind of like took her in as like a little sister kind of a thing. On that trip, her and Craig like spent the night together on the beach. They didn't hook up or anything according to them, but they did hung out that night, and then from then on they're like pretty close. At one point Craig talks about how he just kind of understands Catherine, and she is so young, and so he just feels, he wants to protect her like in a brother kind of sense. And then I thought it was cringy but also funny when Patricia tries to get Landon and Shep together. Like, she like brings her over and like gets her dressed up for a few events and tries to like teach her how to land Shep, and at one point she like confesses her love to him, and then he like kind of chokes, like he's drinking wine, and he kind of like chokes on his wine. Like, she's like, oh, did you get excited there? And he's like, he was so not into her, and I had a hope for like an episode or two there, and then I was like, yeah, no, they're not. Landon's like a little bit more aloof, and Shep would get annoyed with her, even though I think he did try to hook up with her when she first moved back from being divorced. So I mean, talk about that's like, I think what makes a good Bravo show is like a lot of incestuous relationships and people hooking up with people. Like, Catherine pretty much has hooked up with all of the guys on that cast minus Craig. So it's fun. So that's the first like few seasons I wanted to talk about, and then on my next video I'm going to talk about the more recent seasons, especially getting ready for the new season coming up, because it's just so much to cover. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. Make sure you come back to check out part 2 of the video. If you can like the video, if you can subscribe, maybe check out my channel and see some of my other videos, I would really appreciate it. It goes a long way. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Can pull me from the dark. dark.